it's important for us not to lose sight of, we're going to see that in chapter 14 especially, that despite all these indictments of Israel and the judgment that's coming, the book emphasizes their ultimate national repentance and restoration. It's strange that there are so many scholars, and I'm amused by the label. It must have been done by Congress. They always, what did Mark Twain say? Assume you're an idiot and assume you're a congressman, but I repeat myself. Anyway, so many scholars, and they call themselves Reform scholars, still deny that there will be a regathering of Israel. They haven't looked on May 14th to 48th, that debate should have ended. And a national repentance is yet coming in the days ahead. They have not experienced that yet. And these guys argue that Israel's failure when she rejected Christ caused them to forfeit, and the fulfillment will be in the church. The tragedy with that view is that it tends to make God a liar, because both the Old and the New Testament are full of promises to Israel that thus become forfeit or of no effect. So you want to be careful of that, because it's okay for a lot of good scholars to have different views, but you want to be careful when your view may be contradicting God's character in some way. Anyway, the promise of Israel's regathering and restoration are made all through the Old Testament. We won't go through all here. And they're repeated in the New Testament. And they were repeated, not only are they repeated in the New Testament, they're repeated in the New Testament following their rejection of Christ. That's an important point. And in the opening verses of Romans 11, it is clearly not true that God has utterly cast off his people. In fact, that's what Paul directly contradicts. And he highlights this peculiar interval of focus and opportunity for the Gentiles. Then he goes on to restate and further define the Old Testament prophecies of a time of future blessing when Israel is blinded until the fullness of the Gentiles become in. And then he goes on to describe what's going to happen. But they still have not returned to the Lord, and they're still in peril of losing Jerusalem. That's another thing. All of us have made mistakes in our prophetic perspectives to realize they haven't gained Jerusalem yet. June of 1967 didn't quite do it. And the United States is committed to them keeping from doing that. That makes me very nervous for America's future. But they will return, and they will seek the Lord, their God, and surprisingly, David, their king. Well, that must mean the son of David. That's not what it says 4 times. David will be resurrected, and he's got a role, amazingly enough. God keeps his promise. He kept his promises to Abraham. He kept his promises to Moses. He keeps his promises to David and to Mary. And he keeps them to you and me. That's why that's so important. That's why we can trust him, because of his history.